Good morning. I am attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch here with you guys on Tuesday mornings in English, Thursday mornings in Spanish. As you all know, I'm an immigration attorney. We're here every week talking through the news of the week. I'm interpreting all of this barrage of headlines that you're receiving, all of these videos that you're seeing on your social media feed. What does all of this actually mean? Giving you my opinions and thoughts and comments. We're having a discussion. You're giving me your comments, and I'm answering your questions live about your immigration cases. As a reminder, my law firm is based in Austin, Texas, but immigration law is federal, and we offer virtual representation to people all around the 50 United States. So if you are in need of an immigration consultation, which is the number one thing that an immigrant can be doing right now to protect yourselves, is talking to an immigration lawyer about what you are eligible for, how to protect yourself, what to do in case you get picked up. These are conversations that you want to be having directly with an immigration lawyer, and we are still offering free consultations. This is our gift to the community in this difficult time. So please reach out. If you feel free to put your questions here in the live. I love being able to answer your questions. But if you have a private question, you don't want to ask it on social media, just DM me on the socials, any platform that you follow me on, and my team can get you set up for a free virtual consultation really anywhere around the globe. So with that being said, well, let me say one more thing. I do have a special announcement today, and I am going to be telling you what my special announcement is at the end of this transmission. So if you're curious about what that is, stick with me and we'll talk through the news of the week first. The first thing that I want to tell you guys about is the new good moral character requirement on the citizenship test. So this is something that you would have seen a lot of headlines about, that they're now affirmatively requiring good moral character. It sounds, I think, a lot worse than it is. It could impact some people really negatively. The problem is that it's subjective. So let me give you a little bit of backstory. Whenever someone becomes a U.S. citizen through naturalization, they have to have their green card for 5 years or 3 years if they're married to a U.S. citizen, and then they have to pass the civics test, and you have to speak enough English and answer several questions. You also have to prove that you have good moral character. And historically, that has meant you don't have any arrests, you don't owe any, big tax debts, you don't owe any child support. That's how you prove good moral character historically. Well, USCIS has now announced an affirmative proof requirement of good moral character. So that means that the officer who is examining the person is going to want to see evidence of their good moral character. And we don't have a list of how to prove that. So what I would say is, if you're applying for citizenship, don't despair. Don't let this stress you out too much. I mean, you can prove your good moral character, but you would show your family ties, or your work history, or the fact that you belong to a church, or that you volunteer, or you're a doctor and you help save people's lives. I mean, whatever the thing is about you that makes you a decent human being, just provide some evidence of that. So I'm not particularly worried about this. I think that some people who apply without a lawyer and don't exactly know how to navigate it might end up with a request for evidence or a denial that you have to overcome. But I don't think that by and large we're going to see a huge impact on citizenship cases. I think this is one of those headlines that sounds worse than it is. I mean, it's absurd and unnecessary, but I don't think it's going to overall impact citizenship eligibility. Another news item, the new Democrat coalition, which is 115 Democrats in the U.S. House, have proposed a moderated immigration plan in advance of the midterms. And you guys know I don't spend a lot of time on proposed legislation because so much legislation dies in the process. The vast majority of proposed laws die in committee, or they die in a vote. They just don't make it all the way through the process. So it's not worthy of a lot of our brain space as we're trying to navigate all of this stuff. But I will say that this is sort of a moderate immigration proposal for immigration reform. And what we're going to see in anything that's going to make it through is going to be moderate like this, which means we're going to see some enforcement, some more crackdown, even though, of course, we know it's not necessary. The borders are not porous. DHS has an insane budget already, but anything that gets through the U.S. House is going to need to have something balanced like that. As it is proposed right now, it does have a pathway to legal status for undocumented people. That's going to be the big thing on the other side, right? I mean, we've got, of course, the Dreamers, we've got expanded need for labor visas, but the big thing to balance out an immigration reform is going to be something to help the undocumented population in this country. And, who knows whether it'll go through. I mean, I think that there's a chance, given how wildly unpopular Trump's immigration policies have been. I think that they know, right? They know that how unpopular it is. And we might start to see some immigration reform in advance of the midterms. So I don't know. I think I'm not going to hold my breath over immigration reform before the midterms or this particular proposed legislation, but I think it's worth watching and maybe carrying a little torch of hope for immigration reform. So we have some good news on federal litigation. As we've talked about, what's happening. We've got the Trump administration being insanely aggressive in their policies, Congress really not doing much about anything, and the courts, the federal courts, are just slowly hitting the brakes on a lot of these policies. So we've seen some of the detentions in immigration courts have been blocked. We've seen the Trump had an effort to defund sanctuary jurisdictions. That's been blocked by the court. And then we have the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Surely you've heard and seen about his case. He is the Salvadoran man who in 2019, he got withholding of removal from the immigration court. Withholding of removal is like asylum. It is a protection that says this person will be persecuted if they go back to their country. So he got withholding of removal from El Salvador. The court order said this man cannot be sent back to El Salvador. Well, the Trump administration detained him and sent him to El Salvador along with that group of Venezuelans. So that's why his case was so egregious, was because we had protected him and said we wouldn't send him to El Salvador. And sure enough, that's exactly what we did. And the Trump administration didn't like all the negative press. So they got really loud in their counter arguments. He's a criminal. He's a human trafficker. He's never going to be free on U.S. soil. All of this stuff. I mean, they did so much press doubling down on their position about this man that when the courts finally ordered him returned and then last week ordered him released and he was free to be with his family and we were all celebrating, the Trump administration just cannot stand it. They cannot stand that this man was free on U.S. soil. And so they re-detained him. And now they're attempting to deport him to Uganda. And, let's be clear. You're going to see a lot of stuff that says, oh, he's a criminal. He doesn't have a perfect history. Okay, so in 2020, his wife applied for a protective order. And so there's some court records about her claiming that he had been violent with her. He doesn't have a conviction. And I will say she has been his biggest advocate since he was detained. She very much wants her husband with her. Then when he was returned from El Salvador, the Trump administration perhaps invented some charges of alien smuggling because at one point he had been pulled over and he had some migrants in the car with him. They were pretty flimsy charges. I mean, that's what they have against this man. But because he has become such a flashpoint, the Trump administration isn't releasing their teeth. They're a dog on a bone with this poor man. And now he's back in detention. But a federal judge has ordered that he cannot be sent to Uganda, at least for now. So we'll keep watching the case of poor Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and let's not forget about him, and let's not stop talking about him. Okay, a couple more news updates. For the first time since the Great Depression, we have a net negative immigration. It's not a good thing. The Trump administration would tell us that this is good news and that we want immigrants leaving. That's not the case. As we know, as we've talked about, if you're here, you know this, we need immigrant labor in this country. First of all, immigrants are what makes America such an amazing country. But beyond the humanitarian angle and the cause for diversity, immigrants make this country run. In Texas, 1 in 2 of our home healthcare workers is an immigrant. 1 in 5 of our doctors is an immigrant. 1 in 4 of our nurses is an immigrant. We need immigrants in all sectors: STEM, tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, landscaping, construction, hospitality. Our baby boomers are aging. I mean, the data is so super clear on this, and yet the Trump administration has terrorized the immigrant community and attacked both undocumented immigrants and immigrants who have legal status, such that people are choosing not to come here from around the globe, right? Students are choosing not to come study here. Tourism is down, and immigrants who are in this country can't take it anymore. I talk to people every day who are contemplating leaving because they don't want to live under siege like this. Good people without criminal histories. So our population is dropping, and it's not a good thing, despite what some of the headlines will say to you. And this is the last immigration or news update. There was a symposium called the Jackson Hole Symposium, where central bankers emphasized that economies like the US, the UK, the European Union, and Japan rely heavily on migrant labor to mitigate workforce shortages, especially as the demographic shifts strain productivity and growth. So conferences, data, statistics, everything that I just said, we know that it's true. So there's your news of the week. I'll just tell you again, I'm going to start answering your questions, your live questions, and then at the end of our live questions, I have an important announcement that I want to share with you. So thanks for starting to submit your questions. I'm ready to talk about your cases. On TikTok, 5050 says, I'm going to Arizona next week. My concern is flying with DACA. Totally understand that concern. It's valid. There have been a few DACA detentions. I've studied them. What I can ascertain in the handful of DACA detentions that we've seen is that there is a complicating factor in the majority of these cases. So there was a woman named Xochitl Santiago who was detained at the airport in El Paso. She was taking a domestic flight like you are. And she was detained by CBP. I mean, number one, El Paso is an international airport, so there's a heavy CBP presence there. So that's always something you want to consider. I mean, there is CBP in the interior airports, but when you're in a big sort of border international airport, there's more CBP presence. Another thing with her case is that it came out in the news, I don't know her, that she had some drug charges. Don't know the specifics, don't know the outcome, but there was some complicating factor for her. There was another dreamer in Florida who was detained, and this person had received a traffic ticket, no big deal, mailed to their house and had not paid the fine. So potentially had a warrant. I don't know, again, I don't know, these aren't my clients, but I've seen the news about the dreamers, and so I deliberately went in and studied and gathered as much as I could about each of these cases. As far as I can tell, each of these individuals had something: removal order, arrest, warrant, something like that created complications. So will immigration make mistakes and arrest people who have legal status indiscriminately? Absolutely. We've seen that. So I'm not going to say you're safe to travel and nothing will happen. But in general, the arrests that we're seeing are because people had some type of criminal history in their background. So if you've got a super clean background, you've got a valid work permit, you've got a real ID, has a little star on your driver's license, you should be clear to travel domestically. There's no policy, I should say, that goes after dreamers, even though there was a soundbite from the secretary saying dreamers aren't protected against deportation. That's actually not true. Dreamers have deferred action, which means they're protected against deportation. So that was a misstatement. It was not an accurate statement of the policy surrounding dreamers. All right. David on Instagram. I'm currently in removal proceedings because my asylum case didn't meet their criteria. Okay, so you applied for asylum affirmatively, and then they referred you to court. I married a U.S. citizen. My interview is in October, and hearing in court is in 2026. Should I go to the USCIS interview? For sure. Okay, I have a question. interview for your marriage, David, is in October. Is that what you're saying? And if so, you should go to the interview, but you need to have a lawyer. If you have a lawyer, talk to your lawyer about this. But if you don't have a lawyer, you can reach out to me. If you are in removal proceedings, USCIS no longer has jurisdiction over your marriage-based green card. You have to get that approved by the judge. So probably if you filed before, which is if your interview is just now in October, then you do. Yeah, I mean, if you filed before, they scheduled you for an interview, now you're in removal proceedings. I'm trying to think about how I would navigate this. I think I would probably send a notice via the mail to CIS and ask them to hold the 485 in abeyance so you don't have to pay those fees again, and then try to get the 485 transitioned over to the jurisdiction of the court. So it's a little complicated, but it is navigable, and you definitely would want a lawyer for this. And if you don't get a response from them, then I think you could go to the interview. I don't see any cause for you to be detained at the interview, but I want to know more about where you're from, what your history is, how you came in, all of that, because they are starting to do some detentions at USCIS interviews. I don't want to cause alarm, but there is some concern about going to interviews if you entered without legal status, you have any criminal history, any complicating factors like that. So let's talk, or definitely talk to your lawyer. Jenny, this is such a good question on Instagram. What can we do to help immigrants feel safe? Excuse me. Central Texas, allergies, fall. Anybody else? It's been kind of a nightmare this week. What can we do to help immigrants feel safe? Do what you're doing, Jenny. Be here, be on this Instagram feed, share it, talk about immigrants, be us allies need to be as loud as we possibly can. And that's all the stuff that we already know to do. We call our legislators, we go to the protests, we visit all of the immigrant-owned businesses that we can find, and we give them 5-star reviews on Google, and we post about and talk about that this is an immigrant-owned business, and we talk to our relatives who are on the fence about why immigration is important, and we pick up this cause, and we call our immigrant friends and we say, how you doing? Do you need something? Are you safe leaving your house? If not, can I help you? Are there any errands that you need running? Do you need someone to be the designated person to pick up your kids if you get detained? So like on an individual basis, take care of the immigrants that you know and love. And on a policy basis, get loud, elevate our voices, just don't get desensitized, because it is such a barrage, and this is deliberate, right? They know exactly what they're doing. They know that they are just like rolling out policies and headlines and attacks faster than we can even respond, and it's exhausting. And every time you see one of those videos on your feed, some horrific video of somebody getting detained and crying for their family, and you are tempted to just scroll, watch it, feel your feelings, and share it and tell other people to watch it, because we can't just start allowing this stuff to go on. I mean, I was having lunch with some friends of mine yesterday, and we were talking about how we know Democrats, liberals, progressives who are so overwhelmed by everything that they're just checked out. They're just living their lives, right? Which is such a privileged thing to do, to like go to your job, go hang out with your friends, go home and be with your family, and decide not to watch the news or get on social media. Meanwhile, our cities are burning. Not literally, but this is not the time to check out, as tempting as it is. I'll just say it, it's just not. So hopefully that gives some ideas, Jenny. Instagram, Elgo Mes. I love y'all's names on the social media. We got to get creative. There's so many people on social media now. Is your team doing anything to help free Xochitl, the DACA recipient who was detained by ICE in El Paso? We are not her lawyers, so this is what I'm doing, right? I'm here elevating, talking about her case. Go check her out. There's petitions, there's GoFundMes, there's stuff like that. So spreading the message is what we can be doing. But no, I haven't been, I'm not representing Xochitl. Okay, sorry, I got these questions out of order. User 18, there we go. Keep it simple. Class 4 felony of misconduct involving weapons. Is there still hope for a 42B? So 42B is cancellation of removal. It is a deportation defense for someone who's been placed in deportation proceedings. You have to show you've been in the country for longer than 10 years. You have a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident relative who would suffer hardship if you get deported, and you've had good moral character for those 10 years. So probably a weapons charge, a felony weapons charge, would prohibit a finding of good moral character if it were in the last 10 years. Generally, good moral character, the intersection of criminal law and immigration law is so complicated. It's ridiculously complicated. But in general, the types of crimes that affect good moral character findings are weapons crimes, drugs, theft, violence, right? If it's in those 4 categories, probably going to be a problem for good moral character. But I would want to review the statute, right? So we pull the state statute, we pull the actual record of conviction. Maybe it was a deferred adjudication or a deferred disposition and not actually a conviction. So there's a lot that we do when these questions arise to look at whether it's going to prohibit eligibility for the defense. In TikTok Legal 93, my husband will lose TPS on September 8th, so he must be Honduran or Nicaraguan. He will be unprotected. He has a son that is turning 20 in November. Is there any hope? So his son can't petition for him until he's 21. A U.S. citizen child can't petition for a parent until they're 21. I would like to offer a consultation to your husband, to your family, because definitely TPS holders who are losing status need to consult directly with a lawyer to find out what else there is that you can do, because I would not be surprised if the Trump administration immediately starts going after those people. Not because they should. I mean, these are people who have been here for decades, paying taxes, renewing work permits, like by definition, don't have a criminal history because they've had TPS, like the best of the best. But the Trump administration goes after people that are easy for them to catch, people who are on a list, people who show up at court, people who show up at their ICE check-ins. And here we have this whole list of TPS people that they could go after. Now, one counterpoint to that, though, is that when someone has so much time in this country, they can't be expeditedly removed. So they have rights. They can defend themselves in court. And so the Trump administration might not go after them because it would just result in like longer court proceedings. So we'll see. But in any event, your stepson can't petition for him until he's 21. I don't know what your status is. Maybe you could do something. Maybe he's eligible for some other type of visa, crime victims, trafficking, something like that. So I really highly recommend a direct consultation to explore that. Okay, I've got 2 more questions and then I'm going to do my announcement. Okay, so stick with me if you guys could. Is it safe to fly with DACA? Edith, I would say yes-ish, if I could say that. We have seen some DACA detentions in the airports. As far as I can tell, each of these individuals had some complicating factor. A warrant, a criminal history, something like that. So the law says that you can fly if you have DACA, deferred action, you have a valid work permit, you have a real ID, you can fly under the law. But we are seeing some review and detention of people who have criminal histories. Okay, Angela, would you recommend going for legal status through marriage at this time? Absolutely. Absolutely, I would. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, you qualify to get legal status, you should definitely go forth. One of the things we're seeing right now is approvals are coming really quickly. They're coming in just several months. I mean, it's kind of behind the scenes. It's kind of an oddity, right, that our cases are flying through. So there is heightened scrutiny on marriage-based cases. They want to make sure that there are valid marriages and not fraudulent marriages because they assume that many marriages are fraudulent. But if you're in a valid marriage, go ahead. You'll survive any scrutiny, right? Because you're actually in a valid marriage. All right. Last question, and then I'll do my announcement with you guys today. People with valid work visas are being detained as well. Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. People are being detained somewhat indiscriminately. That's because we have these ICE officers out on the street, right? They're masked, they're in plain clothes. They're doing what they call targeted operations in regular jurisdictions, where they have someone on a list, they follow that person, they go to their house, or they go pick them up off the street, and then they arrest anyone who is around them. That's a targeted operation that's occurring in most jurisdictions. And so people who are around these collateral arrests, if they're getting in the way, if they're a person of color, ICE might just turn and detain that person. And what we're seeing is that they're figuring it out later. So even if someone's like, I've got my work visa, or I've got my work visa in the house, which isn't recommended. If you have legal status, carry that document on you. That's really important. But they are indiscriminately arresting people and then figuring it out later in certain jurisdictions. So can you be arrested even if you have legal status? Yeah, that's not like by and large occurring. When it is occurring, it is a mistake and it is being corrected. But there aren't numbers around that, right? They haven't published the statistics on that. So, and then they also are doing like wide scale raids where they are indiscriminately arresting people. There has been some pushback in the courts on that. So we're seeing some success in the courts on these raids. I mean, the Trump administration recently asked the Supreme Court to allow them to use racial profiling. I mean, they didn't put the words racial profiling, but they want to go where immigrants are known to gather, Home Depot parking lots, and to arrest people based on their perceived country of origin. So, and then what they do is they just arrest and figure it out later. Okay, we've made it to the point of the special announcement. This is kind of a big deal for me. So thank you for those of you who are still with me on this. This is about a new project that I'm launching. And here's what I want to say. I'm an immigration lawyer. I will always be an immigration lawyer. That will not change. The work that I do personally, the work that my firm does, that my team does, it is my life's mission and my calling, right? To support the cause of immigrants in this country. That will never change. And over the years, I've worked through several presidential administrations. I've seen so much horror on the front lines. I've seen families detained. I've seen families separated. And the whole reason that I exist professionally is to support immigrant families. And the work that I have been doing has been reactive and responsive. And I get to help families. I mean, just on Friday, we got to reunite two families that had been separated for months, a family of 4 with 2 little daughters who were 4 and 10, and a single dad, a father of a 6-year-old boy who had been separated from his son for 4 months. And we got to stitch those families back together and send them on their way. And that is so extremely fulfilling and gratifying. To be able to do that as a profession is the greatest honor of my life. And I'm responding. I, as a lawyer on the front lines, am in response and reactivity because some other people are in the rooms where the decisions are being made. And I'm doing the best that I can, and I will keep doing the best that I can. And I'm ready to be in the rooms where the decisions are made, the decisions that are impacting families. It's time, if there ever were a time to step in the room, it is now. And so with all that being said, I'm really excited to tell you guys, my community, that I am launching a bid for Texas House District 50, which is in Austin, Texas. It's the Texas House of Representatives. The current representative is James Tallarico. He's awesome. He's really great. He's done a really great job with this district. And he's preparing to announce a bid for a statewide campaign. It's not totally launched yet. So I'm telling you that when he launches, I'm throwing my hat in his ring, and you're going to start to hear from me. You're going to start to hear from me about issues that affect Texas families. And on the front of all of that, because I am who I am, is going to be immigrant families. I will not forget that that is my professional calling, and I'm ready to go in the Capitol, in the rooms, in the committees where the decisions are made to fight for Texas families. So that's what I'm doing. Please stay tuned. Please keep following me. Those of you over the last several months and years who have said, what can we do to support you? Pretty soon, I'm going to have lots of ideas. I'm going to have ways to support, to volunteer, to join the cause, to come to events. So stick with me. Another thing that I promise to do, because I'm like here on camera talking to you guys, is share the journey. I'm not a politician. I wasn't actually thinking about this even 2 months ago. And so I'm going to be like learning about this journey with you, and I will be sharing everything with you. So you get to like have an inside peek of what it looks like to become a candidate. And I'm really glad. I'm really glad that I have you guys with me. I'm glad that I'm here in House District 50. I've lived in this district for 15 years. This is, North Austin, Pflugerville area. It's a lot of my people. And I'm looking forward to going on this journey with you. So stay tuned for more. Thank you guys for being here with me today. And we'll talk soon. Thursday en español. Adiós.